this. All right, let me go and present this. All right, we're going to show this screen. If I need to move myself, you just let me know, and we'll rock. My friend, if you think a can and a quarter of, not even, of beer can get me drunk, I wish. I wish. Just Tour is vaping allowed? You do whatever you gotta do. You do whatever you gotta do to get through it. Okay, so when we're talking about new imperialism, the reason why it's called new, Troy, thank you for the dollar, appreciate you. The reason we're talking about it as new is, like I said before, you have this phrase colonization, which is mostly like, that's like Columbus era, where you have Western European countries go over a lot to the Americas, but also like you have the spice trade and stuff too. This isn't a new concept, because that has already happened before, right? Happens in the 1400s. You have the spice trade that's going to start to evolve and all that stuff. It's different now, and one of the biggest differences of why it's so unique from colonization is because of the technology component. Because in the 1400s, when Western European countries go over there, or they go over to like India or Africa, because they're already in Africa as well, they don't have the technology. So for example, the Congo, they're unable to get into the Congo because the Congo's so effing dense that they don't have the technology to literally go through it. After Industrial Revolution, they now have the technology to do it. Also, we'll talk about some other pieces of technology that they have. Ludicrous Fire, got a call back from NASA? Let's go! Ludicrous! Holy crap, man. That's incredible. That's it. Hell yeah. Let's go, Ludicrous. That's amazing. Hell yeah. I hope you get that job. Let's go. How it'll affect the Packers? Who cares? Bro, congratulations. That's amazing. Whew. Theater, school, jingle all the way. Watch, upgrade. Grossi with Fire, welcome to Grown Up Class and relive the hearing of all the teachers you missed. Yes. Des Return, Mr. Grossi, can I have one earbud in with quiet music? That's fine, as long as you're not interrupting others. That's ludicrous. That's effing awesome, though. NASA? That's dope. Congratulations. That's super duper cool. So, okay, what I'm going to show you, again, is going to be a bit of the end of the lesson of Age of Realism, which kind of talks about the Industrial Revolution a little bit, but you'll see what I mean momentarily. Okay, so let me move myself up here. Let me redo. I'll just make myself nice and small. No one cares about me. Okay. Super Tour, why do you have Monday Night Football in your scripted NFL videos? Because they come out Monday during the day. So I can't because it hasn't happened yet. All right, so let's talk about some science. So we talked about this in our post-World War I lesson, in which we talked about how, especially late 1800s, early 1900s, there is starting to be this shift that is occurring in Western European society, in which before that, and you could, like, it depends on how far back you want to go. But when I talk about, when AP Euro starts, it talks about like around the Renaissance, but it's like really late in the Renaissance. They say it's mid, but it's really late. Religion for a very long time rules everything that Western Europeans do. You talk about the Middle Ages, all about the church, right? And if I could teach you about the church forever. I mean, because their influence is there for a really long time. You have the Reformation that is going to happen. That's going to drastically reduce the power of the church 1,000,000%. Like it's going to really reduce what they do. But in terms of science, you have things like the Enlightenment, scientific revolution is going to come before that. And if you remember this, like maybe in your learnings or maybe you didn't learn this, so for the longest time, and this is going like way back into other lessons, for the longest time, the church and basically a lot of Western European society was like, yeah, all the planets and the sun, specifically the sun, revolves around the earth. That's what they're saying. Now, who can tell me why? So why is that the popular idea that the sun revolves around the earth? Caleb, is religion a bigger dynasty than the Patriots? Yes, it is. It's a great question. It's a great question. So why is that? Why? Yep, heliocentrism, narcissism, sure. Church told us, because God, yeah, Human-centric stuff, I like that. There we go, Andrew. We're getting closer, right? Boom. So the church and the Bible definitely say this. But the reason why the church and Bible are saying this, right, is because, according to the church and Bible, human beings, yes, I'm going to be streaming games on Sunday, right? Joshua Turek, that's all we can see. Not necessarily all we can see, but what Jack is saying, it's heliocentric. The idea is that the earth is at the center of the universe because God, according to the church and the Bible, made human beings in his own image, right? That's what like Christianity is saying, right? Bible, whole 9 yards. So it's saying that. So of course, we would be at the center of the universe because we are so important, right? We're so important. We are literally the end all be all. Exactly. Johnny, not at this point. So that actually changes around the Reformation. That's why, like, when Martin, that's a great question. So Johnny asked, does the church still have control of the Bible so people had to go to priests to hear scripture? So that's how it was for a, like, really, really long time. We're talking hundreds and hundreds of years. And that's why during, like, the Reformation period, Martin Luther translates the Bible into German. Because does anybody know what the Bible was originally in? Does anybody know? Look at Jason, we're doing a history lesson. We're doing a history. Like what was, or like what all like the Latin. Good, Emerald. Excellent. Good old Latin, right? So, how did you learn to speak Latin? Well, there had to be schools. You had to learn Latin. So for a really long time, especially during the Middle Ages and stuff, some of the most educated people were the church. And because people couldn't read, they would have to go to church and they would have to be told. So if you've ever been, and I'm just speaking from a Roman Catholic perspective, if you've ever been to the point where you've been to like a mass or something, I don't know if every single church does this. Yeah, originally written in Greek, but I'm saying like what did the church primarily utilize it in? It was in Latin. Yes, originally you're talking about Greek. But I'm talking about like the primary practice, it was in Latin. So what winds up happening, if you ever go to a mass, they ring a bell. Like when like the bread is supposed to be transformed to the body, the blood, the wine's supposed to be transferred to the blood, whole 9 yards, right? And they did that because people didn't understand Latin. So they're like, yeah. So now that goes on for a really, really long time. Martin Luther translates it into German. And once people get their hands on the Bible, now they can start reading it and going, whoa, wait a minute. I don't know about this, because the church, they would interpret their own like ways, right? They would interpret, they'd be like, oh, this is what this means, because there was for a long time, and the Reformation is one of my favorite topics to teach about. The Reformation, the church is like trying to hold on to this and being like, hey, we have the information. You gotta be like, hey, you gotta come to us for the information. It's basically like, yeah, the Bible's important, but what the church says goes. And that lasted for a really, really long time. Part of the Reformation is people started interpreting the Bible for themselves, like Lutheranism, all that great stuff, right? All that. So, the reason I explain that is because religion is kind of a dominating factor, even though its power is drastically reduced. Like, drastically reduced. Around, like, the 1800s, it's still there. It still has a presence. It's still there in Western Europe, even though it's been diluted a little bit. So, what winds up happening is science, during like scientific revolution, all that stuff, really collides with the church, right? Copernicus and is like, you know what? I don't think I don't think it's the sun revolving around the earth. I kind of think it's the other way around. And the church was like, whoa, hey now. Darth III, yes, communism was born. The church was like, hey now, why would the church be so upset if instead of the sun revolving around the earth, it was the other way around? Now the earth revolved around the sun. Why would that be such a problem? So just explain to me in like simple terms, why would that be an issue? Good old Galileo. Loss of power. Yup. It means they are wrong. Knocks their credibility. So then, thank you, Mitchell. Yes. And now it starts the doubt cycle. So for example, if I sat here in this chair, and I use this analogy all the time. If I sat in this chair and I said the Green Bay Packers won 18 Super Bowls. From the year 2000 to 2019, they won 18 Super Bowls, right? And let's just say you did not have access to the information to refute what I was saying. So you think I'm right. But let's just say you then find out the Packers did not win 18 Super Bowls. So now, not only are you seeking out that information for yourself, all that great, wonderful stuff, but now, how do you feel about me? I'd be a liar, Marcus, right? Oh, but maybe I wasn't intentionally trying to lie. But, there you go, Colleen. What else am I wrong about? Because I'm wrong here. So what else am I wrong about? So the church tries to hold on to that for a very long time. So, what winds up happening is as time goes by, and I always like talking about this too, the scientific revolution, enlightenment's kind of just like a whole bunch of rich people. So like, vapors would fire, Tom's joined my club. It's about, scientists are like really nerdy. And what I mean by that, and I'm talking about back then, you can talk about today too, whatever. But scientists are like super nerdy, and they kind of just like keep to themselves a little bit. It's kind of just like, hey, yeah, like maybe I'm in France and I'll write to somebody in London and like we'll share our findings there. But it's very, very like exclusive. And I'm just going to come out and say it. Around like the 1800s, nobody cares about science except scientists. It's a very like exclusive, just like let the nerds do their thing. That's it. Josh Fireshirt, in your mind, the Packers won 18 Super Bowls. I freaking wish I did. Ludicrous Stewart, North Korea does this for the Olympics plus World Cup. There you go. How does the fall of Constantinople affect Aaron Rodgers' legacy? Anyway, so that's before 1850, so like mid 1800s. After the 1850s, the general public is going to start to become more aware and cognizant of science. Can anybody tell me why? Can anybody tell me, you could, as is kind of for modern day, yes. Can anybody tell me what changed that now like everyday people are like, wow, that's a scientific thing. All right, so people are talking about Charles Darwin. Okay. Access to information? Yes. How would they get access to that information, though? Printing press comes around a lot sooner, but that is one of the most important inventions of all time. Yes. Yes. Let's say printing press. Newspapers! There we go, card! Yes. So, as time goes on in West... We learn to read. There we go. We got it. We got it. So, as time goes on, people become more literate. Newspapers become more popular because it just makes sense, right? All of a sudden, there is a skill that people have, and a lot of it's because the Industrial Revolution, right? Printing presses around, but like, and you see a smaller scale of this during the Reformation about people like starting to form their own little sects of Christianity because they're like, hey, we can read the Bible for ourselves, especially Lutheranism. They're like, hey, interpret the Bible for yourselves. We're rocking and rolling. So the point that I'm trying to make is now newspapers are a thing. Literacy rates are starting to go up. And I will say, like, you're starting to see like the real big like booming of cities, and mass communications at around the end of the 1800s are really going to start like going up. There's going to be idea of like mass consumerism, mass information, all that kind of stuff. Because before that, it wasn't really there. So now, the third bullet there, which is arguably the most important one, and I put it all in caps because of this. Truth can now be found in science and the natural world rather than what? Rather than what? The church religion. Good. Because originally, for a long, and I shouldn't say originally, but for a long time, the church was the end-all be-all. You wanted info? You went to the church. And to the church's credit, they did save a ton of documents, like a ton of like resources and stuff. That's really important to historians today, 1,000,000%. But now you can find truth based off of science. And so if you recall from the last lesson I talked about foundations, about how in like Western European society, definitely in American society, but Western European society for the longest time, religion was like the foundation of what that society was, right? Eventually, what winds up happening is science is going to eventually replace that. That's not to say religion goes away. That's not to say there's not religious people. But now, that is slowly, in the 1850s, it's starting to become the new foundation. Because you can now, just about everybody knows, unless you're a flat earther, everybody knows, world is round, right? We go around the sun. That was not common knowledge, but now it's starting to become a little bit more common knowledge. So you're starting to see a bit of Western Europe and society pull away from the church and from religion. They're kind of like, okay, maybe we're going to start to focus on the here and now. And if you recall, especially when we're talking about like the Roman Catholic Church and all that great stuff, if we're talking about that, then their main focus was on the afterlife. It wasn't on the here and now. Oh, you're a peasant and your life sucks? Don't worry, your life will be better once you die, right? So now it's like we're focusing on the here and now. God's Smoke and Fire, greatest enemy of religion is knowledge. I forget who. Josh Fire, organized religion is a Ponzi scheme. Not saying the teachings aren't real, but it's a grift for money and power. Religious texts are history books. They are history books. I will never forget, because it happened every single year. I told you, for 4 years, I taught an all-girls Catholic school. And teaching freshmen, like, ancient history was one of my favorite things to do, because it was one of the first times that, because obviously there was a bunch of students who were Catholic. There were a bunch of students who like really didn't understand any other religion. And I really enjoy teaching about other religions and stuff. But I always ask this for people, like talk about like the earliest concepts of religion. Like you're going like Mesopotamia, stuff like that. Why? Like, what is like, how did religion come to be? I'm not talking about Christianity. I'm not talking about Judaism. I'm talking about the concept of religion. How did it come to be? Austin Fire, Professor Grossi, will Daniel Jones get sacked in the medieval time? Yes, he is still getting sacked even if he goes back there. Yeah, it's just probably going to be a more difficult one. Okay, so people are saying power and control. Sure, but at the end of the day, Colleen, you are correct. Because, lots of drugs, what religion did is it started to explain and give answers to the question that you had, or questions that you would have. Joseph Fire, Grossi, but in place of the caste system, only the elites had access to knowledge. French Revolution, after the American Revolution, masses had info. Not to the degree of what you're talking about. So the caste system, yeah, you're talking about the elites and religious figures absolutely having like access to knowledge. French Revolution, it does change a little bit, like propaganda. So one of the most famous pieces of propaganda that comes out during the French Revolution, I've actually told this on stream before. So about the King of France at the time, it's Louis XVI. His hobby is he's a locksmith. Don't ask. That was his hobby. And so people started questioning why Marie Antoinette and also Louis XVI weren't having children right away. And so like there was satirical stuff that was going around that was like depicting that like the locksmith couldn't find the keyhole as to why he couldn't get Marie Antoinette pregnant. Now, if you really want to go TMI, Louis XVI actually had a little bit of an issue and had to get like a minor surgery and then eventually did and then had children. That's neither here nor there. But the masses actually having access to info and being able to read it and it's like readily available. French Revolution, you start to see a little bit, but it's more localized. Like, for example, London produces a bunch of stuff and like about how like the French, like they're going to take over because like the French Revolution is so scary because they also want to kind of keep order and control. But what I'm talking about now is like legit collaboration in which you're not just focused on your town or your city or even your country. You're now reading and being like, oh, here's what's going on here. And it's so readily available because more people are going to school. More people are becoming literate. So you're not wrong. It's just at this point in time, like in the late 1800s, the amount of information and access to it explodes in Western Europe, if that makes sense. So yeah, people have access to information, but in terms of just the readiness and like the amount of people who have access, that really, really blows up. Raphael, Tanner, sorry to interrupt class, but GPS stream on Sunday doesn't start with The Rock, Austin Mania 17, My Way sort of package. We have fail football. Also starting Love and Fantasy. Hell yeah, let's go. Let's go. It is my way. Ben with a Tanner. Hey, Grossi, first time donating any stream, but I love the educational stream and all other content. Go Lions. I appreciate you, Ben. Thank you, thank you, thank you. We rocking. Gods with fire. Average person's greatest fears are death and loneliness. Insert religion. Now there's an afterlife and God, or the gods will always be with you. I mean, if you look at ancient Mesopotamian religion, they think they go in between like the Earth's crust and the ocean, and they just suffer for eternity because the gods gave them so much during their regular life. So it wasn't always happy stuff. Like ancient Egypt dives into that idea, and that's like the weighing of this, like your soul or heart against a feather. And like if you did like good deeds and things like that, you would either go to like a happy afterlife or you would get eaten by a big old monster. But yeah, some of that, but it basically like just the legit, like it's to answer questions. Why does that big ball go up and down of fire, go up and down? What is it, etc. Anyway, Tanner, book rec. Russell's History of Western Philosophy, understanding how the church arose from Plato's philosophy is mind-blowing. Ooh, that does sound interesting. That does. Railroad and Telegraph, 1,000,000%. Railroads, you can make an argument that creates like schedules. Like legit, because now like you got somewhere to be. Like before electricity and stuff too. Like I always loved how my old history professor explained this. He was just like, bro, like before electricity is like you had candles and stuff, and I was like, all right, time to go to sleep. That's it, it's dark. So anyway, so what you're gonna start to see is this kind of focus on the here and now. Okay, cool. If we're not as worried about the afterlife, well then we're worried about the here and now. That's when you're going to start to see the rise of things like materialism and having stuff. We're having stuff. And I love, like, for example, one of the things I love talking about is actually fashion. Fashion's really interesting to talk about because back in the day, like talk about French Revolution, for example, like Marie Antoinette would get her hair done as like a sailing ship. Like bro, it was crazy. Like hairstyles, what have you. Once you start to have more people with more money, what are you going to do? So let me I set this up in the easiest way possible. You have a whole bunch of people now in society that have a whole lot of expendable income. What are you going to do? You're going to make crap to sell them. Oh, the Industrial Revolution's happening. You got a lot of crap that you can make. And it's like Industrial Revolution, but more like this time period especially. There is a shift from what people need to wanting. And again, we talked about credit and stuff like that in the interwar period, but that shift is happening around here. And it's about materialism. And again, if we go back, what is materialism directly against? Whose values is that directly against of, I want to buy stuff to make me happy? Cave on Fire, you're teaching this better than my history professor did when I took world history 1500 to fall 22 semester. I'm sorry. I hope it helps. I hope. Josh, mature pre-electricity, hence daylight saving times. There you go. The church! There we go! Right? So the church is like, uh-oh, this is a problem. Because we gotta be pious and stuff. We can't be like buying a whole bunch. We can't be vain. None of that stuff, of course, Luke, you can. Yes. So, the reason I always explain this first is because these are some of the trends that are starting to occur. The church is losing power and, more importantly, influence, and they've already been losing it for the past couple hundred years. And then you're starting to have this introduction of science, which, again, I want to be very clear here. If the mass public is starting to pay attention to science, who is going to have to also start paying attention to science? Think about it. Lux with Terra, the skull chant should be recognized as a cardinal sin. Agreed. Agreed. John, you're talking about good old indulgences. Good old indulgences. The church. Well, the church is not... The church will introduce it a little bit, but Harrison, you are correct. So leaders, and or if they have a monarchy still, leaders, government. There you go, Ben. Government. Tanner, same thing. Government. And so you are going to start to see, and this happens a little, this actually happens earlier, but it's very, very, it's like the exception. Like Louis XIV actually listens to like a little bit of science. And again, very localized, doesn't happen very often. Say what turn, no, don't worry. We're still on the first slide. So politicians, leaders, all that great stuff, they're going to start incorporating science because now they see that people are influenced by it. So obviously they're going to adapt to that, right? So I always put this in there because this was also like 2016. Got to do the meme, or 2017 memes for the kids. Next to fire the church, the cause and the solution to all of life's problems, beer. So again, of course. Oh, it's an old meme, but it checks out. And yes, I did show memes to my students that I created, because why wouldn't I? So again, it's starting this rejection, and again, not full of like, oh my goodness, I'm gonna go do whatever I want, but like nihilism's gonna start to pop up around the late 1800s. It's gonna get really popular, as we talked about, post-World War I, etc. So consumerism, materialism is starting to become important. Okay. We need to have a conversation. I wrote this in the biggest capital letters that I possibly could, because this is one of the things that drives me insane. Okay. You ready? Are you ready? I am sure at some point in your life, you have heard the phrase survival of the fittest. And I would assume 99% of the time, you would say that that quote is associated with Charles Darwin. And Charles Darwin comes up with evolution, all these new things that are going to influence society, right? Charles Darwin does not put it in his book until the 4th edition. He doesn't even come up with survival of the fittest. He does not at all. JR, what did I tell? What's 9 plus 10? I heard 19, but jury's still out. So, Darwin is a very influential figure at this time. Who does not like him? Of course, the church, especially at the beginning. Chris Fire, the Holy Grail scene weighing scale, which for Stuck vs. Wood. Yes. So, I want you to, in your own words, what does survival of the fittest mean to you? What does that phrase mean? What does that mean? Strongest one stays alive. Little social Darwinism. Strongest will survive. So, LQ, you bring up natural selection, which is a great topic. Don't worry, we'll talk about it. The weak will die off. Species with the most advantageous traits will survive to produce. Whoever benches the most. Cave on Fire, I can tell you all about evolution. I'm taking a zoology major, and I'm taking an evolution class. There you go. Gotta be the cream of the crop. Good. All right. Cotton, you bring up a good point there. The weak get left behind. Giggity Retour, not being a Bears fan. All right, now we're starting to get into this, right? So, can anybody tell me why this is not a great idea? And again, it is not from Charles Darwin. It is not. Because we'll talk about natural selection. We'll talk about it. We'll talk about it. Two Hat says racism. That is correct. What else? It's not true, but no, let's go deeper than that. Let's go deeper than that. Can crave to be the best. Sure. Perot's might over right. Yeah. Janine says eugenics. Oh boy, that's a good one. You ever want to like really be disappointed in your country? Look up eugenics in around the 1920s in the United States. That's a fun one. JR, Turp, Tom, please stop talking about survival. You're too OP. Sorry. It's basically saying, right? Charles Darwin. Can anyone tell me what natural selection is? Like legit, like break it down for me. The scientific one, like the actual science behind it. Charles Darwin. Explain to me what natural selection is. Boost to fire. AP Bio student scored a 4. Survival of the fittest is being born in the right place, right time, and not dying before you make a baby. Davey with a tour. Packers have natural selection over the Broncos. True. It's true. Josh Tour led to the rise of evangelicalism and nationalism. Oh, we talk about nationalism. I love it. Yes. Oh, you are learning. Strong will survive. Sure. Strongest genes get passed on. All right, LQ. Organisms adapt to their environment via generations, developing traits to help them survive. Excellent. All right, I know this is not a science class, but guess what? You're going to learn that too. I'm going to give you a really easy example of natural selection. Okay? Let's just say you're a bear. Okay? You are a grizzly bear, you're a brown bear, right? You're a black bear, whatever, I don't care. You're a bear. And you live in a snowy environment, right? Great. Years will go by. Generations will go by. Bears will reproduce, all that great, wonderful stuff. And maybe there is a bear that's born along the way that has a little bit of a lighter or whiter coat, right? So that bear with a lighter, whiter coat is going to blend in with the snow. And so because they are going to blend in with the snow, what are they going to be able to do more of? Oh, wait, it's fine. Bear is racist? Maybe. I don't know if racism exists within bears. I don't think so, but... They're gonna live! They're gonna survive better! They're gonna hunt better! Because they're matching in with the snow! Just like I match up against that wall. Right? The idea is that that bear is going to be able to survive because they get to blend in more with their environment. And so because that bear is going to survive, they're going to reproduce. And then guess what? More and more bears are going to have lighter and whiter fur. And so eventually you're going to get polar bears who are going to survive in snowy environments more than brown and black bears. It just makes sense, right? That is what you're talking about in terms of natural selection. It's adaptation to the environment, etc., etc., etc. David, if I wish you were my middle school teacher, I'd have learned a lot and got drop kicked. True. K. Tour, wait, Tom is a bear? No! K. Volunteer, pass on the genes. Exactly. Okay. So, that comes out. There is a guy named Herbert Spencer who is a god-awful, crappy person, okay? Who we're going to talk about. Because what I just talked about with you, this is Charles Darwin, right? So, mid-1800s, he writes this very, very famous piece that's called On the Origin of Species by Means of Natural Selection. And what it's all about is what we just talked about. Natural selection. Okay? So it's the polar bear thing, right? Exactly, Tracy. Adaptation, reproduction, keeping that moving. Gods of Fire. All the Chicago Bears will turn white. Tom Grossi, 2023. I feel like that doesn't play well. Speedway Tour. Hey, Tom, I have my jersey waiting for Sunday. Let's go. So, all about natural selection. Now, again, literacy rates are up. Books are being produced. All that great stuff. People start reading about this. This kind of breaks out of just the scientific community. The public gets their hands on it. And all of a sudden, they're reading about this and they're like, oh, all right. And that second point there, right, is the way, because listen, folks, you all know it. Life is hard. Life is very, very difficult. Very hard, right? It's hard for us. It's very hard. Listen, nature, you've seen nature. Nature is brutal. Nature is lions like ripping off parts that shouldn't be ripped off. It is brutal and it's nature, right? So Darwin comes up with the idea in which he says that the animals / plants that are going to survive in this entire struggle that we call life are the ones that are going to be able to adapt to their surroundings and pass on those traits. But hold on. Jared, we're trying to get as natural selection contradicts the church's teaching, so the church tried to undermine evolution. Not necessarily that. The idea, so that's not like the main focus on why the church was against that. Jared, I'm leading to a whole different point that is actually regardless of the church. But to explain to you, the church really didn't like Charles Darwin evolution is because Charles Darwin was like, yeah, we evolved from apes. And that directly contradicts the church who goes, no, that God did that in his image. That's what we've been saying for all these years. So yes, so now it definitely 100% contradicts. And then it's also like coming from animals, and then we are not special anymore. Oh my God, it's the earth going around the sun all over again. See what I mean? Jared Tura, history professor, pulled out the 2016 Tennessee census. Go up to the fire. Darwin didn't say it. Why is he attributed to him? Because he winds up putting it in that survival of the fittest. He puts it in the 4th edition of his book. So we'll talk about that though. We'll talk about it. Now, I need you to understand something, and I'm sorry. I realize that I'm blocking this. Sorry. Ghost Fire no longer asking. Play Spider-Man 2. First boss goes crazy. All right. I need you to understand this. That second part. There is something in there that's the most important part of that sentence. And it is the last 2 words. The example I gave you of the polar bear, right? How that came to be. That literally, by chance, there was a bear who was born with lighter fur. And because of that, that bear thrived in that snowy environment. It is by chance. It is random, right? It's not handpicked. It's not God. It's not anybody going like, yup, you get this, you don't get this. It is by chance. And that's very important to understand because when you realize that survival of the fittest doesn't come from Charles Darwin, who's sticking within the animal-plant realm, you can see how the argument's going to fall apart pretty quickly. Connor Fire began job at a vocational teach, Tommy Nobis Center in Georgia. Thank you for cheering me on, Tom. Let's go. All you enjoy the content, go Falcons. Hell yeah. Best of luck. Let's go. Darth and Nate, I think Darwin awards went for a different way they would have hoped for. Probably. But again, I want to be very, very clear. Darwin is talking about animals, a lot of birds, and plants. He is not, and I just want to explain this for everybody in the back. He is not talking about people. He is talking about animals and plants. And I know you're going to come in and you're going to be like, oh, well, human beings are animals. Yes. He's not talking about that, though. And so, 1871, he creates The Descent of Man, which, by the way, what it's even called, The Descent of Man, oof. Ellie, went to the Galapagos Island in high school in my class. I learned so much and I loved it, except for my entire class getting no revised. Yeah, that part's not good. But that's awesome that you got that opportunity. So now it basically takes the idea of human beings who, remember, according to like the Catholic Church, human beings are made in God's image. And Darwin is here saying, nope, they're just evolving from animals. That's it. They are ordinary. It was already a big old problem when we learned about the Earth and the sun and the way that went. And now you're taking the idea of people and saying, no, they're nothing special. They're evolved from those guys. That's it. Rio Natur, Galapagos finches and other animals. It's true. It's true. Humans are monkeys with anxiety. It's facts. So, church obviously doesn't like this. Okay? Good old Charles Darwin. Right there. Rulers aren't going to like that. Mitchell, I'm so glad you brought that up. Yes. Rulers are not going to like that. Especially, but at this point, like, you don't have too many divine rulers anymore. They're kind of pretty much gone. But yes, old ones, definitely not. Patriot Terror, beginning of the year, I bet you $100. Winner charity choice. The Pats would not finish fourth. There's still a lot of football left. But what charity do you choose? Friends of Animals, just in case you need. Okay. Let's talk about this guy. Okay. This is where we're gonna have a chat now. All right. So you might be wondering, and I saw some people already got it, if Charles Darwin didn't come up with survival of the fittest, then who did? And it's this douche nozzle, Herbert Spencer. Okay? This guy puts out a book. It's in the 1860s. It's 61 or 68. I don't remember the exact date off of my head. But he reads Darwin, right? Because we go back real quick. Hold on. We go back. We're not going back. We go back is after Darwin. Derek, thank you for gifting 5 memberships. I appreciate you. So Herbert Spencer reads this like many other people do. And he goes, oh, natural selection. Which again, Darwin is talking about plants and animals. Talking about the polar bear. He goes, yeah, let's apply this to people. Human beings. Let's take the science of it and apply it to human beings. Nothing can go wrong, right? David, if I would love to see a history of football series by you, Missing Market on YouTube. Laments of American Football, a 10-part series essay. I would like to do that. Yeah, I wouldn't mind that. I wouldn't mind. So, this is where you get social Darwinism. This is where survival of the fittest comes from. Because now we're saying it's not just plants and animals. Human beings, say what, Tura? The correct term is this effing guy. True. Inject! Thanks for the 5 memberships. Down, Tura, I saw 300 Spartans who created survival of the fittest. Oh, they created a lot. They threw babies off of cliffs. Yeah, that was a time. Knew how to fight, though. So social Darwinism is making the argument that people and groups of people, you can see where this is going, are held accountable and, more importantly, are subject to what Darwin is talking about, like natural selection. So, we're taking a scientific explanation of natural selection, and again, fall and take care, talking about by chance. Chance. Chrysator, Planet of the Apes, yes. By chance that bear is born with lighter fur and adapts. Herbert Spencer says no. This applies to human beings. And because this applies to human beings, what is this saying about human beings and how they can treat other human beings? Ballin, if I were going to learn how NFL teams evolve into great teams, building through the trenches first, great coaching, and I think a lot of it starts with a good defense, and then if you get a franchise QB, great. So, what does this lead to? Anything they want. Spencer is like, oh, I could do a racism. Tiers of human beings. That's a good one, right? Give hateful people a reason to think they're one superior race. Oh, that's pretty crazy, isn't it? So, it starts to justify things, and conservatism, I want to be very clear, because at this point, you don't have the context of what I teach about. Let me explain to this. It's not Republicans. Please do not freak out. I'm a teacher, and no student ever knew who I voted for. Calm down. Just letting you know. Okay. Racism, which is pretty self-explanatory, because you're basically saying some people are better than others. Okay. You can figure that one out. That one's easy. Conservatism, what I mean by that, and what, like, the conservative, like, again, old school. This is not conservatives. This is not Republicans, none of that stuff. What we're talking about is what Mitchell actually said before about there are people, like, back to the old, like, monarch / one strong ruler kind of vibe. Because monarchs were ruling a lot. Oligarchies, exactly. Back to the way that things were. And so, I just want you to take a hot second, because the people that are going to support this are going to be rich people. It's rich, powerful people that are like, damn, I can use science to now explain why I should be here and telling everybody what to do. Yeah, they're going to support it. And of course, imperialism. Notifier. Sorry, Blake Glass, what's the nice topic? New imperialism is what we're talking about. It doesn't have a long face. So, can anybody tell me what imperialism is? Tell me what imperialism is. Oh yeah. Tell me what imperialism is. And don't Google it to get it right. Like, just tell me what you think it is. Because that's more important than, like, Googling or getting the answer. The right over people. Yup. The conquest of other nations, people in those places. Hey, I like this land. It's mine now. Yup. Extending a country's influence. Yup. Ownership, taking things. Exactly. Well, now it's science. Why can I go into this country, take over its people, take all of its resources? Science. It's just science. So, talking about, if you want to jump forward in terms of, like, World War II and talking about, like, Nazi regime and stuff like that, and the quote-unquote science that they create a lot of pseudoscience BS because they're like, yeah, science. So again, there you go, Tim. White man's burden. I don't need to give you the poem by Rudyard Kipling, wrote the Jungle Book. I don't need to give you the poem of White Man's Burden. You now understand White Man's Burden. You understand that poem now. You do. Because it's the idea that you are better than another person or people, and because of that, you have the right to do X, Y, and Z to those people. Buso, I can't believe Mac was right about science. Yep. So, that's how we get, that's the context I needed to give you. And now, 2 hours in, now we get into our lesson about imperialism. So, I do have to pee. Are there any questions before we dive headfirst into this? Because we gonna dive. We gonna dive. Plays well with Manifest Destiny. Yes, it does. Yes, it does. Junior, yes, you can go to the bathroom, because I'm gonna go to the bathroom too. Chalky milk break? Yes, you can have that. Absolutely. Absolutely. Is this just a single lesson? No, this is a unit for me. So, like, I'll teach this entire thing. It'll be a long one, but I actually haven't taught this in years. So it feels good to get teaching this again. But yeah, I don't teach this as one lesson. There's no way I would be able to get through it. So, like, for example, like those few slides that I just showed you before, this is, like, technically the first slide of the lesson. Those other ones were the end of the other one. Gruntled, Turret Tom, I think you might have missed my last super. Oh, I'm sorry, Gruntled. I apologize. Let's see, Gruntled, let me roll down here. Please hold. Maybe this is not caught up. Sorry, Gruntled. I think it might have went away. I don't think I saw it, or it didn't pop. It might not have popped up. I don't see a record of it. I apologize. Say it to her. P for the D. Dissertation. Yes, it's true. What role does religion play in imperialism? That is a phenomenal question, and I will tell you all about that, because that's a good one. That's good. All right, I'm gonna P for the D real quick. All right, we're gonna do that, and then we're gonna jump to this. All right, peeing real quick. time to learn. All right, we peed for the D. We're good. Oh, I had to do that. All right, peed for the D. Yeah, we're rocking. Austin Fire, when's the best corn come into this? Much later, but that's social Darwinism. Prince Artur, Himmler believes in racial souls. Also crazy stuff. Yup. Rachel! Fire, my mom just texted me and said I need to make a history lesson counter. Phenomenal. Phenomenal. All right, I hope everyone's all good. We're gonna rouse. I ain't your old teacher. That's it. All right, so let's talk about imperialism. Quick question. Specifically the conquest of other areas or the other forms of imperialism that prove okay by science. So that's a good question, Sydney. If you look at some of the differences, so this was actually a great essay question that would sometimes pop on the AP, and I would also teach it even if it didn't, because it's great about making connections in history, because that's the whole purpose. If you talk about colonization versus this new imperialism that I'm talking about, colonization, Western Europeans justified it in different ways. Religion was a major part of that, of like, oh, like, gotta bring religion, all that great stuff. But at the end of the day, like, in terms of why, or I'm sorry, like, being okay by science, this is the first time that science is really kind of accepted by the mass public. So there's not really going to be an earlier time that they kind of justify it with science. They find other justifications to use to be like, this is why we're doing this to you. Gear to Fire, it doesn't help that the general public's very limited knowledge of how to interpret new ideas, spread mistakes. It's true. Gruntold, with 20 question was for Darwin. Didn't come up with the concept of survival of the fittest, but he included in a later edition of his work. Why did Darwin let this guy bastardize his work? So he didn't, actually. So that's a great question. Darwin actually really likes the quote, survival of the fittest. He gets it from Herbert Spencer. And so Herbert Spencer's like, oh yeah, you can use it. And so he includes it in the 4th edition of his book because he kind of doesn't care about this. He's not about like talking about like the human being aspect of it in terms of like, oh, like putting it to society. He's talking about the science of it. So he doesn't care about that. But he likes the survival of the fittest quote, so he just takes it and puts it. I think they start publishing it at the 4th edition of his book. I'm sorry I missed it before. Jordan, 1 year in Green Bay right now, town trucker life. Jordan, drive safely. Hell yeah, let's go. Green Bay all the way. Okay, we roused. So imperialism, and I use this word very intentionally, and you can get a textbook definition, you can get whatever. I kind of don't care. You just need to understand the concept. That was the only thing I did while teaching. As long as you understand, I don't care how you put it. I don't care how you demonstrated it. As long as you're able to do it for whatever assessment we have, or you could just demonstrate it, we're rocking. So I use the word domination because it is what it is in terms of it's not just taking over, it is dominating a people or a country. And it's very important that it's all these things. It's their political, so their government taken over, their economy taken over, and their cultural identity taken over. And that last one there, that's why, for example, the British, like when they go into, and they've been in India, but when they go into India and like this stuff starts happening, there are so many cultural clashes and it leads to like significant conflict. Timothy Tenor, Ultimate GPS Ball reward. Loser has to buy the winner a WWE style championship belt unless you already have it. Well, Perna only has the Chiefs, so that actually could be pretty good. That could be pretty good. Do you have a pencil? I have a pen. Write in pen. Write in pen. Make mistakes. Use a pen. Okay. So, you are dominating their culture, everything about them, their entire identity. You don't have to write any of this down. So, Cecil Rhodes, who, that is a person. I show this quote because, again, this is how I use primary sources. If I just give you a primary source, you're not going to know what to do with it. Who cares, right? But now all the context I have given you, I'm not just going to teach you about the events of like, yep, the Europeans, they went, they took over other countries, they took their resources, blah, 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 blah. No, this is like how you understand history. I gave you the context of what is going on in society, what's going on with science, what's going on in those scientific societies that now spreads to the mass public, which is now accessible because of all the inventions we have and literacy rates and schools and mass schooling. Mass education's a thing in the late 1800s. All of this stuff is happening, right, to get to the point where now we're justifying why we are doing the terrible things that we as Western Europeans are doing. I'm just saying we as them. Patriot, welcome to the posse. Appreciate you. So, this is a guy who's British, right? And this is where, like, the British get their reputation. And I know that there's, like, a lot of... Yeah, I know a lot of the youngsters have their memes and stuff like that about the British... This is the British Empire part. So, this is a British person saying this. I contend that we are the first race in the world. Okay? And that the more of the world we inhabit, it is better for the human race. Science. Survival of the fittest. Social Darwinism backs him up. So he's saying that, listen, this is good for everybody. This is good for the entire human race. Every person on Earth. It would be better for them if there were more British people. That's what he's saying. Kyle, what a fire. You've read Things Fall Apart. Talks about colonizing. Yes, in Nigeria at the end of the 19th. Yes, I have read Things Fall Apart. I've actually used that in a classroom too. Sobering book, but very, very good book. So, the more British people there are, the better the human race is. So we got that. I contend that every acre added to our territory, the British, provides for the birth of more of the English race. They're a race now, too. Who otherwise would not be brought into existence. So, okay. So let's just make sure we're going through this at the right speed. The world and human beings as a whole would be better if there was more British people. The more land that the British Empire controls, the better. Because then more British people can be born on that British territory, which means we have to take over all that land so we can make more British people. Okay, just making sure we got that. I believe it to be my duty to God. Oh, so now we're bringing back religion. Because see, it's not gone away. The influence is no longer there. It's not as strong. But now we're going to bring it back in. Because all people who are like, hey, still, we got to bring them in. Timothy 20 is someone who loves his history and watches YouTube channels like VTH and Mr. Beat. I'm all about this history lesson right now. Grossi, football, hockey, WWE, world history. Personal rush. I appreciate you, Tim. I appreciate you. Right? Got to get our justifications from religion. Excellent point, Stephen. Right? My queen, because of course, monarchy, conservatism, even though they have a parliament and they're kind of advanced, especially when it's the age of monarchs over there in Western Europe. But, queen, and my country. Oh, let's pause this. Let's pause. What is that? God makes sense. Religion. Queen makes sense. Monarchy. But he says my country. What is that? What is that? Papoose to Fire, you ever read the Uncle Eric books by Richard J. Mayberry? I read them as a team. They have similar tone to your presentation. I have not, but I thank you for putting that in my purview. Okay. Emerald, nationalism. There we go. Oh, God, just wait till we get to nationalism. Oh, just wait. So now, because late 1800s, nationalism's coming into this. So, is Cecil Rhodes doing a racism? Oh, yes. But I want to, pause for a second. I want to, pull yourself out of this lesson completely, right? We are very honed in right now on imperialism and what's about to happen with that. But we're going to, jump ahead for a hot second. Nationalism is a major, major reason World War I's going to happen. But I wanted to go even before that. Also, if fire, please tell me we get a lesson of the wing hustle. I don't have that, but maybe I can make that. I could make that. If we pull ourselves out of it, nationalism is going to be a major reason why World War I is going to happen. Oh, imperialism too. Don't you worry. Okay, we're gonna get there. We're gonna get there. Nationalism. What is nationalism? What is the central idea behind nationalism? Maine. Oh, Himmel, yes. Nationalism appears a whole lot before. Yes, you could do the Roman Empire, but no, on a mass scale in which all civilians, like on this scale, your country's the best. So where is that coming from? Social Darwinism. Grunter Fire, at this point, it may be good to explain the difference between nationalism and patriotism so there isn't any confusion. That's a great question. So like patriotism, right? So you could have pride in one's country. That's totally fine. Nationalism, and what an issue with nationalism is, oh, you love your country? Of course. That's great. That's fine. Right? It's my country's the best, which means that other countries lower on the totem pole. And again, look at the justification. Like, it's a book in which you already know the ending to. Because the people that Western Europeans are going to imperialize, the people that they are going to attempt to dominate, they see as lesser. Because they're in different parts of the world. They look different than the Western Europeans. Reasons A through Z. Of course, it's going to get to a point where there's already imperialism, you already have Western Europe influence all over this place, that they're gonna turn on each other. It's only a matter of time. There they went up, Betty! Boop for the kitty, history style boop. All in now, as the kids would say, keep it up. We all do better when we learn every day. Let's go, baby. Let's go. Let's go. Let's go. Okay. So, going back in. Duty, God, Queen, Country, all that great stuff, right? Okay. And country, to paint the whole map of Africa red. He doesn't mean blood, but, you know, it's not a good look. From the Cape to Cairo, that is my creed, my dream, and my mission. So Cecil Rhodes is waking up every day and going, man, I want to wake up every day. It is my dream and my mission for God, my country, my queen. Just make more British people and get more land for Britain. Jared to fire, nationalism, imperialism. My nation is better than yours and all others, so we'll supplant your ideas with ours by any means necessary. Give it a fire. So how prevalent is Rhodes' philosophy? Is it majority or minority? So this is what I'm going to this is how I'm going to explain it to you. That's a really great question. It is the majority of the ruling class's opinion. And, again, literacy rates going up, more science, social Darwinism, because it basically leeches off of Darwinism, more people will support that. Because I'm going to be very honest with you. Like, let's have a tough conversation. Lots of leaders, the way they get elected is because they say, right, we are the best. We're the best. That's it. We're better than everybody. And you could talk about leaders from the past 100 years, talk about leaders today. I don't care. We are better than everyone, right? Oh, not that country. Oh, we don't want people from that country. We're better than them. So, it starts with a ruling class, and it does trickle down. Because, again, as I mentioned before, and this is why I really like to study fiction within a time period, stuff that comes out as science, or like this, like pseudoscience, comes out is going to influence literature, plays, eventually what will be film, like this way down the road, of course. Like, it will influence music, all of that stuff. And so, if you have this mindset and people love being told they're the best, they're gonna follow along. So it starts off as a majority of a minority, meaning the ruling class. and it does trickle down, if that makes sense. Again, it becomes part of the culture. Give it a fire. Oh, I got you, sorry. Gods with a fire. One country rule them all, one country to find them, bring them all into the darkness, bind them. It is also the One Ring. It is also the One Ring. Oh, yes, exactly, Colleen. Nate, what's the meeting in Berlin in the late 1800s where the Europeans... Sorry. Oh, my good God. Okay. So sorry. I just, like, choked and died. Okay, what was the meeting in Berlin in the late 1800s where the Europeans divided the African nations? Oh, so, okay, because this is... So, the Berlin Conference is what you're talking about. It's simple. It's right in the name. But yes, the Berlin Conference is such... I compare that a lot to the Congress of Vienna, because those are really two big turning points in Western European history. But the Berlin Conference is basically... Western European countries are, like, fighting over the same land now, and they're like, whoa, like, get off my turf. And the Berlin Conference is like, hey, guys, we don't have to fight. Let's just divide this up. Like, let's divide Africa up to this, this, and this. Is Africa invited to the meeting? Nope. So that's how that goes. That's how that goes. Patrice with fire. I just come back from my job. Did I miss the period where the Dallas Cowboys ruled the NFL? That's ancient history. We don't go back that far. We're not going back that far. Lonnie, with a fiver, sounds familiar to Western expansionism and how it supplanted Native Americans and Mexicans. Oh, yep. Iowa tour. Zimbabwe was named after him. Yep. Fish fire. Oh my God, I thought you were joking about having a history lesson. Please do more of this. I love history. Hell yeah, let's go. Janine with a fire. This is during Queen Vic's rule. Her kids in up being the leaders of most of Europe at the time. World War I. No reason why isn't a good thing. Yeah, right? No reason. No reason. So, that was a great question, by the way. I appreciate you. So yeah, that's what we're rocking with. And so now, this is the kind of stuff that you are going to see. This is a very, very old image. But look at what this is saying. So, like, let's be blatant. Racist, 1,000,000%, right? And just in case you can't see this, I'm just going to move this up for a hot second. What the heck is going on here? Like, what is this? Because this is a real thing. And this is basically what's being sold to people. So somebody tell me what the heck this thing is. Exploitation. Yep. Let's look at this headline for a second. Ethiopia. Yup, Ethiopia. Oh my God. Talk about Ethiopia. I love talking about Ethiopia. Their history is phenomenal. Like, it really is so fascinating. But they do not get imperialized. And the Italians are the ones who try it, and they hate the Ethiopians because of that. So that's why in World War II, Mussolini, like, one of their first stops, like, hey, we're going back. We're going back. So, gold propaganda. Jungles today are gold mines tomorrow. So it's basically forecasting, saying, hey, we get more stuff, we get really rich, this is really great for our country. It's a good thing. Oh, and they're very happy about it, obviously. Obviously. On very history book map here. So by the time we get to 1900, let's take a gander at what's going on. So you have Western Europe. Right? We got all Western Europe all on over here. Great. So, Belgium. We'll talk about Belgium. Don't you worry. They got this, right? British Empire, all over Africa, all of India, right? Australia, the Netherlands, they call it the Dutch East Indies. They get involved. Portugal, France, of course. They have a huge colony in Northern Africa. About Casablanca. All of this stuff, right? So when talking about the Berlin Conference, they divide all this up, scramble for Africa. And yeah, no, nobody's invited. Except Western Europeans. Austin just joined. What are we doing? We're doing a history lesson. New imperialism. We're rocking and we're rolling. Okay. I'll move myself up just so I don't block anybody's view. Now I'm up here. Wheezy, of course. Okay. So now we have justification to do what we want, say Western European countries. So all people in control of major Western European powers basically use social Darwinism, which we just talked about, which is not based in science, not survival of the fittest, as just made up bullcrap, right? Boom. Social Darwinism, we're better than them. Survival of the fittest, the strong survive, we can do this stuff. Cool. And nationalism. Why are we doing this? We're the best. We're the best. That's why. Now, what winds up happening? We already have the Industrial Revolution, which is flying down the tracks. And now, because now it's about economies are growing, people actually have money. Bro, all like old school, like peasants and stuff, like you want to talk about French Revolution? These people are like, hey, I bought a hand towel, and that was my big purchase for my life. That was it. Now, more people have more money than ever before, and they want to buy stuff. Things are be created, blah, 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 commercialization, all that stuff. Materialism. Because, again, if we go back to it, Western Europe and a lot of the world is becoming more secular. They're not focused about the afterlife. They're focused about the here and now. What's about the here and now? I buy stuff. Why not? So, all of this economic growth is going to now be like, wait a minute. So if we get more rubber, if we get more jewels, if we get more whatever, right? Ivory. If we get more of this stuff, we can produce more, we can sell more, and now our country's economy is doing great. But wait a minute. I'm England. I want ivory. I'm France. I want ivory. Well, now we got an issue. Grunted fire. Creating arbitrary borders and pitting tribes against each other really effed up the continent. Oh, boy. Oh, and the Atlantic slave trade already happened by this. People had already been dominated. So, yeah. Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. So, what winds up happening is now you have Western European countries that are starting to beef a little bit because they're like, whoa, 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 whoa. I want that. I want that natural resource. I'm like, well, I want that. What do we do? And that will eventually be the Berlin Conference. So, in addition, because, again, nationalism, if my country is the best, we need to have the best of everything. And that includes military. And we'll get there. So now, all those Enlightenment philosophers, and this is more for like when I taught you AP Euro. Patrice Turi talked about the human zoo in Belgium. Don't worry, I will. That's the thing that does come up. It basically like Enlightenment thoughts, and again, I didn't teach you all the Enlightenment. Enlightenment, you have a lot of ideas about human nature and being like, oh, like John Locke, blank slate, tabula rasa, you're a blank slate, whatever. You could be good or bad. You have guys like Rousseau who's saying everything's all natural, society corrupts you. The point that I'm trying to make is here it makes it very like, hey, we are stronger, they are weak, done. Nobody does tabula rasa, none of that stuff. So, that's it. Plexi didn't know I went back to school. Welcome. So, what's gonna start to happen is, of course, rivalries. So now, it's about having the biggest country. And yes, I do mean it like that too. Colleen, if I add to history literature crossovers, we read the Poisonwood Bible, so much yikes. Oh, that's a big yikes. That's a big yikes. But now it's like, who's got the biggest between countries? And so now they turn around and go, okay, who's going to get the most land? Because then you get the most resources. You can spread your influence, like Cecil Rhodes is saying, because British people, that needs to be everywhere. So this is very important. And this, again, kind of leads to, like, serious conversations. A lot of these Western European countries in, like, the 1800s, especially, like, the late 1800s, Industrial Revolution's been going on for a little bit. Conditions are not necessarily ideal, especially like before 1850. They're not really ideal. It's not until like the 1890s, maybe you go 1880s, but for a while, like, it's bad. You know, especially if you were born in the United States and you kind of got the American history, you know about like the city conditions, the coal mines, the factory work. Like, none of this stuff is fun. None of this stuff is good. And there is a lot of unrest because there's a lot of different philosophical ideas. There's a lot of kind of how should government look ideas that are floating around. And so whenever there are challenges to the government or the wealthy or the ruling class, nationalism is a really good way to distract from the problems within your own country. And I can give you an American example. If you go and look at congressional approval ratings for the past 30 years, don't even have to go back that far, go back 20 years. If you go back 30. If you go back the past 30 years of congressional approval ratings, they are in the trash. Like, I'm talking like single digit. Like 8% of people approve of what Congress is doing. People hate Congress. Hate them. Hate them. Hate. Because they are seen as slow, ineffective, insert everything you possibly, tribalism, all that great stuff, right? And I'm not even talking about today. I'm talking about past like 30 years. So, one of the times where congressional approval ratings were through the roof was right after 9/11. Because, talk about patriotism, 1,000,000% nationalism of, hey, it is us versus them. We attack them. They're the enemy. And for a decent period of time, when things like the Patriot Act got passed, yup, government's great. No problems with the American government. Nope. Because it's rah, rah, rah. And so, like, this isn't a new thing. This is something that's happening back then. That all the unrest, all of the I'm upset at what my government's doing or not doing, that kind of goes away when you're just like, man, look at what we're doing. Look how rich we all are. Or a lot of us are. The economy's doing great. That's pretty awesome. Oh, we just took over that piece of land. Oh, we got these resources. Distracts from a lot of issues. Gods with Fire. Still many parts of the state, especially in coal country, that looked like the early 1900s. Yeah, 1,000,000%. And like, you can talk about unions, you can talk about a lot of stuff that like changes a lot of ideas and stuff like that. But here, the point that I'm making is like, this is how personally I teach history. I just gave you a real world example. Like, United States, a lot of you were alive for it, or at least know of it, right? This is happening in the 1800s. Like, these are not new concepts. It's, a lot of it is like, if you study history, and this is why I love history so much, like, you're like, yeah, I've seen this one before. Yeah, like, you get it. Because now it's happening again. So, again, you have your justification to do that. So now you are justified to take another's natural resources, strip a country or a place of their resources, because you're better than them, social Darwinism. Military, and you're going to start to see militaries get real big. You're going to have to start to see an arms race that's going to happen. And you need resources for that. So that keeps on fueling the war machine and also the economy. So I need more resources, blah, 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 blah. And of course, nationalism, we're number one, so we should be the best. And so now we get to white man's burden. And again, you don't need to read the poem. You could. It's a poem I think you should, especially within this context. Johnny Barks, we are going to talk about that very shortly, my friend. But as long as you understand this concept of what we talked about, social Darwinism, all that great stuff, of course, that's going to happen. Rudyard Kipling. It is a racist, it's legitimately better than races, justification of why Western European countries need to go into another country and raise them up. because it is our duty. Janine, to her. Wish, rinse, repeat, baby. That wash, wish, I do wish. Yeah, but it's like, damn. We're so great. We're so great and white. We're so great. And because of that, we need to go to the inferior, lesser than place and raise them up. Which is the biggest crock of crap ever. Ever. And by the way, even if they believed this, they didn't care about this at all. Beast of Fire, my friend Colin just broke Wisconsin state rushing record. Sorry for talking without raising my hand. Thought it was important. That is pretty damn awesome. Hell yeah. Let's go, Colton. That's dope as hell. So, and again, moral duty, right? So this gets written. Same guy again. Jungle Book. Fun times. I'm gonna only take a little bit of time on this because this gets very technical, and it's honestly not important to like the bigger thing. In terms of just like what this is, just like how they controlled these different places. It's sometimes on the AP exam, so that's why it's in there. I'll explain it super duper quick. But I want to get more back to like the philosophical like rationale behind this. But basically how they were able to do this. And again, every Western European country, they either did like something similar, different things, whatever. But if they were indirect, Fiverr, so when the Fire Nation attacked, exactly. Indirect was like, they did this a lot in Britain. Laissez-faire is very fun to say. And basically, and this is like interesting stuff to talk about, they use locals to govern the people. So, oh man, all right, how deep do you want to go? Because again, this is how I teach. If we really want to go like full teacher, how could you convince a person? Let's just say I just show up at your house, which is a weird thing. People shouldn't just show up to your house. But I use this for imperialism all the time. If I showed up to your house, right? What could convince you to listen to everything that I said? You don't know me. I'm a stranger, right? Like, just say you had no idea who I was. Come in. What would convince you to believe everything I said, follow my every order and everything, and convince those in the house, your siblings, your parents, everybody, that they have to do the same thing? Weapons, power, yup. Fear, good. So, imagine that you are the freaking British Empire rolling into India, and they basically say, hey, you want to rule over them? Like, all of them. You want to rule? Like, here in this area? You got it. You just have to do everything I say. You'll be rich, you'll be powerful, all that stuff. Okay. And if they say no, we'll go to the next person. So, that happens. They bring, I'm just using the British Empire right now, they bring, right, people from India and go, here you go. We're going to raise them as being British. Because if we raise them, right, in London, we raise them, put them through the schooling system, all that stuff, when they come out of school, they're going to serve us. Ooh. Adrian Tour, no exam. But that's what governments are saying. If we take people from where they live and we raise them in our society and then put them back where they lived, they will be loyal to us. Like, that's heavy. That is heavy. So that's what they mean by develop future leaders. Okay? The British use this a lot. The US will use this in the Pacific Islands too. The United States, especially as it becomes more of a superpower, they get involved with this as well. This is more from like the European world perspective. So that was one way. The other way was I'm just going to go with France, right? French are kind of a little hands off, but France. France goes in there. There are French people that are living there in Northern Africa, and they are the ones who go, nope, you listen to me. That's it. Hate me? That's fine. I don't care. Because the French are trying to spread France to this place. That's the goal, right? So the Germans do this, Portuguese do this, French do this, whatever. This is why it's kind of technical, but the importance is that they're taking people, right? And this is what I mean by dominating. Because if I take someone, raise them in the society, put them back where they were, and they're loyal to me, that's the idea of like, I made them better. Because my society, my culture, what have you, is so much better. Which again, social Darwinism, everything we've been talking about. It's like that kind of stuff that leads to this kind of crap. So, here's a political cartoon that is super racist. Right? The depiction of Asians, right? Like the amount, like it is horrifically bad. And again, look at how this is being portrayed, right? Oh, the struggling white man. Oh my goodness, right? And what are they doing? They're bringing these people to the top of the mountain, and they're like, we're escaping barbarism, that they're barbarians. Oh, ignorance, we're skipping that. Brutality. Because they're literally saying, this is just real folks. Like, this is stuff that's happening. So this is stuff that governments are putting out. Like, that's why we talk about, like, what's happening in society and how it directly influences what's happening about how people think, right? This is the classic one of white man's burden, dragging what looks to be not even a human, but obviously very depicted in a very specific way, to a schoolhouse with an American flag on it. Rough times. Now, yes, very racist. So, Johnny Barks asked about this before. Okay. Do we know what this is? Gatling gun. Good. What will Gatling guns eventually become? You let me know. There you go, Foster. The machine gun. Okay. Can anybody explain to me why we're talking about this? Why is this important? Why am I even bringing this up? Why do we care? Why did I just talk to you all about white man's burden, all that great stuff? Change war completely? Easier to control people? Arms race, good luck fighting that. Used to conquer. There we go. Right? So, this is going to lead to so many problems. And this is why, like, World War I is so fascinating to me. Because if you just look at it through the lens of military technology, that's a Gatling gun, right? Someone identified that. That would eventually become the machine gun. And you all know how old school guns work, right? It is slow as hell, right? Fire, all right. Powder, whole 9 yards, right? It takes forever. Then eventually guns get a little bit more complex, especially with the Industrial Revolution. And now, this is made. This is, I can fire an absolute crap ton of bullets. Who has this weapon? Western Europeans. Who doesn't have this weapon? All these countries that they're going into. There is no way that you are going to have people stand up to that. Especially the British, yes. There's no way. And so, this is a way to do all the things we're talking about. All the things of, say, on the British Empire, I want to conquer, spread, imperialize, all that great stuff. Those are all great ideas if you're the British Empire, right? But how do you do it? That's how you do it. And that is a huge problem. Now, the reason why I like to stop at this picture specifically is because I talk about this with World War I. Because a lot of these Western European nations are using this on people who do not have the same weaponry technology. World War I is when they are now fighting other people with the same technology. Trench warfare will eventually happen because of things like this in World War I. Because the early days of World War I are horrific. Because they're standing out in fields and shooting machine guns at one another. How do you think that's going to go? A lot of dead people. And so they dig holes. Trenches. There you go. So, exactly. So, this would be stuff in terms of, again, trying to also culturally dominate and talking about installing local governments, right? They promise power, they promise potential wealth, and they promise control. Now, I asked again, sorry to cover that person's face. I asked again, Annie, yes, they will be condemned to repeat it. I asked if you wanted to get deep before about what could you promise people? What could you promise people for them to turn on their own people? Power, money, safety, etc. Food, shelter. Great point. This, oh man. All right, like we're gonna have real conversations. The Germans, who are Germany, they're a part of imperialism, right? They are part of this new imperialism. What they do, like in Africa, what they do in their colonies, are almost down to the T, down to the letter, exactly what they do to their Jewish population. Because when Jews get sent to the ghettos during World War II, during what will eventually be the Holocaust, you had Jewish police that policed the ghettos. Even up to when trains were coming. Like, even when we were there. Like, when sending people, because the idea was, I'm useful. It is the worst thing I could do, but I'm useful, and maybe my family will live. The exact same techniques that are used in imperialism are then used during the Holocaust. That's what history is. And it's rough. It's rough. So that's just like, again, some of the stuff we're talking about. Hill saying, would you say modern foreign aid is colonialism 2.0? Since a lot of the aid is tied to purchasing credit for goods produced in the nation, giving it aid. A picture of that going with the mix and going gives it away. Yes. That's a really great question. And it also depends on when you're talking about. If you're talking about like today, I would say yes. It would check a lot of boxes because those strings are attached. Like, for example, you look at Japan pre-World War II and then post-World War II. Germany, West or East, again, same ideal. But yeah, like modern day, because the strings are attached, it's not as like aggressive and egregious, but I would say it is a like low-key way to do so. 100%. 100%. So that's a great question, though. It's a phenomenal question. Okay. So the first place that we're going to talk about, again, this is all not one lesson. This would be broken up into like numerous lessons and all that great stuff. I just gave you all this background of what leaders are thinking, what science, in quotation, is saying. And now we're getting to the implementation of imperialism. And now we're going to talk about, okay, well, how did they do it? Where did they do it? What did that lead to? Etc. So, how long would this take to go through the unit? If I was on the old schedule, probably like a week, maybe a week and a half to get through like this PowerPoint. But again, like the first 7 slides of context I gave you, they would have already had it from the past unit too. Like I would have gone a little bit faster here, like a little bit faster. So yeah, no, for AP, yes, in like regular like global honors, yes, this would take a lot longer. But AP, you have to go this fast. It's crazy. Cold Fire's big history buff. This has been the most enjoyable. Your ability to string together seemingly distinct historical events is laudable. Thank you. I appreciate you. Yeah, I think appreciate you, Bruce. It was something I actually was talking to someone about, that I think that this is just like a me personal thing. It has nothing to do with the lesson. You see it a lot in like Coach and the sagas. I think I just like, I have a knack for tying things together, like the lore. I just like doing it. It's just something I really, really enjoy. And I think that that really helped me as a teacher, because I'm able to do that with like the lore that is history. Like I'm able to tie things like to ancient Egyptians to literally like this Belgium, right? Like able to do that. And that's what creates that understanding about history and like why it's actually important. The worst teachers I ever had were like memorize this date, memorize this person. I don't learn anything from that. And like this could be so fascinating, so fascinating. And I love it. And like that's what students will pick up on. So yeah. All right. Before we jump into this, I have to pee really bad. I also am gonna grab myself a glass of water too. Gods of Fire, if you had to guess what area conflict triggers World War III, where would it be? Ukraine, Taiwan, Middle East, Pakistan, India, all the above. I'm still of the, I'm gonna say neither. I'm still of the opinion, even though crazy things are happening in our world, I'm still of the opinion that there won't be a World War III because there's no winner. If you talk about like the major superpowers of the world, there's nukes. Nobody wins. Nobody. So that's what it takes. You have superpowers actually like, yo, we're fighting. Everybody dies. And so like nobody wins. There's no point. So same with tour. Brady's history's greatest monster with Professor Perta. Yes. All right. I gotta pee. I'm gonna grab water. Be right back in like 2 minutes. Break. Da, da, da. Nearly back. We'll be back in 30 seconds. Alrighty then. Apologies for the delay. We're good. I had to pee. All right. Yeah. Got ourselves some high quality H2O. And now we're ready to go. Now we're ready to go. Okay. Here we go. All right. So let's talk about China. Let's talk about China. Yes, Boxer Rebellion. Absolutely. Okay. So before the 1800s, I don't know why that's lowercase. Apologies. Gods would have fired. I feel like World War III would be cyber or economic warfare. Oh, that's been happening for a long, long time. Damn it. Come on, Moosey. You've been upstairs the whole time. Now you want... Okay, fine. Now you come downstairs. Good God, sorry. Co-teacher Moosey. I apologize. So, basically before the 1800s, what would happen is China has dealt with like colonization attempts at imperialism before, and they viewed it as a very like bad thing. Scott, Fire History and Sports Nerd here. Lost my cat earlier. Need something good tonight. Tune in. Thanks for the fun and joy. Scott, I hope you find the kitty soon. I'm sorry, buddy. That sucks. I hope you're able to find that kitty. China sees this and is like, no. Like, we're not doing this. We're going to set, like, specific limits. They can never be broken. This is the only time that we will trade. They have, like, literally times of the year where they're like, yup, we will trade with, like, Western Europeans. That's fine. But that's it. So now we are going to talk about, like... Oh, yeah, I'm sorry. Lost is no longer with us. I'm so sorry, Scott. I thought you meant Lost. One of my friends just lost their cat, and that was like, okay, I'm sorry. Buddy, I'm still thinking of you. And I bet that kitty had a great life. I apologize. So that's what China does. Before that, they're kind of like very strict about who they deal with, trade with, etc. Now, stereotypes. One that is true in this planet, British people love tea. They love tea. It's true. So if you go back about 100 years from the 1800s to around the 1700s, basically, British merchants, they start to go to China. They want tea. China's like, we have lots of tea, but again, they are setting like very strict limits on when they can trade, who they can trade with, etc. Right? They love the tea. So what winds up happening is in the 1700s, because again, there's British influence in India already. They take over parts of India in which now, India, you grow opium. So, does anybody know what opium is? Oh, East India Trading Company. Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. A hell of a drug. Oh, yeah. We're talking about, like, big-time drugs. Big-time drugs. Like, heroin kind of drugs. Like, morphine kind of drugs. Like, very, very addictive and strong, powerful drugs. Okay? It's not tea, and it ain't no vitamins. Okay? Hence, opioid. Exactly, Johnny Parks. 2 points for Gryffindor. So, here's what happens, folks. The British, they want more F&T. Sorry, 2 points to Hufflepuff. They want more F&T. China's like, no, we're not giving you more tea. So, what the British start to do, because they know what opium is at this point. What they do is they start selling opium for tea. Bill Latour, poppy seed pizza bagels? Huh? Huh? Hmm? So I just want to be very, very clear. They start telling China and go, hey, we'll give you opium, drugs, like they make heroin with. All these, like, so for tea, right? So what's gonna happen is the Chinese become addicted to opium. Shocker. So China does a bunch of stuff. Like, they, like, kind of step in. They're like, whoa. They outlaw it. They go, no, opium, gone. We're not doing it no more. You can't trade it anymore. Stop giving our people drugs for tea. And so the British are like, no. And China's like, what do you mean no? No. Merchants, they're like, no, we're not going to do that. And so, what happens is there are ships of opium that are still sent to China. And so China sinks a ship because they go, we told you no, and now you're still sending ships with drugs to get into the country. So we sunk it. So that leads to the Opium Wars, because that is all they needed. The British go, bet, sunk one of our ships. We're at war now. Breaks out twice, by the way. So 1839 to 42, and then 56 to 60. Okay? Eventually, the Republic of China will be formed in 1912. AP Euro didn't like focus a ton on that, but that's how long it took. It took a while for like the actual Republic of China to be formed. But yeah, literally got people addicted to heroin, and we're like, yeah, we're gonna keep doing this. And then, of course, the British fight them, win, and then they open the ports. And so now China is going to become basically fair game for everybody. Get all the tea as they want. So, started doing it during a severe flood, resulting in mass starvation, and people wanted something they could get cash for and outlaw the British brought drugs. Yeah, absolutely. Oh no, like there was opium dens. Like it was a very, very like lucrative business about getting people freaking hooked on drugs. So, this was the actual like quote letter that was sent to the British. Because, of course, when we're talking about the British Empire, in London, guess what? Opium was basically illegal because the British knew what it was. And they're like, whoa, well, we don't want to get our citizens addicted to opium. So, yeah, no, you like can't have it here. But they're selling it to China. Do we see the hypocrisy? So that's what they're saying. So they're saying, we've heard of that in your own country. Opium is prohibited. Utmost strictness and severity. It's illegal. So like, they're just like, I heard it through the grapevine that in your own country, you made this drug illegal. But you're selling this drug to us? Kind of hypocrisy here. So, they're saying it's strong proof that you know what it is, you know how hurtful it is, it's a problem. And so since you don't allow it to hurt you guys, you shouldn't have it come here. Like, this is spelled out in like the stupidest way possible. It's like, hey, so you don't allow this in your country, but you're giving it to us. Doesn't that seem like that's the thing you shouldn't do? And the British are like, nah, we're gonna do it. So it's literally spelled out. And so when you look at opium sales to China, this is chests of opium. Not much. Starts going up a little bit more, a little bit more. Oh, now it's going up. And again, it makes sense because when the opium wars are eventually going to happen, what have you, people get more addicted. It becomes a lucrative business. And so the British are like, yeah, we're not going to stop selling this crap. Absolutely not. It is making so much money. So much money. And again, the British also hated the fact that they didn't have access to China all the time. So there you go. Go opium plant, just so you know what it looks like. I always show people. Sorry about that if you have trypophobia. So legitimately, there would be opium dens. 100%. Opium dens, people were addicted. It was a lucrative business. Good old poppies, rocking and rolling, right? How it's depicted. Listen, these people are having a grand old time, right? Good old drug dens. The British knew what they were doing, right? This is the reality of what they looked like. It was usually tight. It was cramped. It's not a fun time. Oh, yeah, it's basically, just all drugs. But this is a depiction, legitimately, of, like, how much we're talking about. This is so much money, so many drugs. We are talking about, like, an insane level of drugs. Like, a lot. And it's just pouring into China. Oof. Like, big oof. So, oh, Lord, yeah, absolutely. Yep, you'd have soldiers out and counter it too. Absolutely, GTA 5 characters would be proud. It's a lot of drugs. It's a lot of drugs. Again, a lot of drugs. Okay, so basically, Opium Wars happen. You have the Treaty of Nanking. Basically, I'm just not, because you don't need to know this for an exam or anything, but the long and short of it is that the British win, right? All the reasons we already talked about. The British win, and they basically open up everything for China. It's like, hey, full trade. We get all the tea we want and more. Christopher, all the poppy seed muffins. The damn muffins. The damn muffins. So, what Britain gets in this year, they get a lot. So again, I just want to be very, very clear. So China writes to the British. They're like, hey, can you not give this drug to us because you don't allow it? British go, nah. Send ships. China sinks ships. War. British win. Now they get to set the standards of how they can trade. Gods of Fire. Nothing compared to the amount of drugs that's down the street for me. Everyone's having a good time. Having a good time. So, Britain gets access to more trade ports than they ever had. They have tariffs. I like this one. Most favored nation. So basically, the British, again, and I really need to make this clear. They basically said, hey, we're going to send ships of opium that you asked us not to send. You're going to sink those ships. We're then going to attack you because you sunk the ships that you asked us not to send. We're now going to be like the top of your priority list when it comes to trading. Oh, also, little thing. They get Hong Kong. Just a little thing. They get Hong Kong. Tiny bit. Just a little bit. It's this tiny little thing. Hong Kong. They just get it. Tiny little thing. Oh, also, hey, you remember when you sunk those ships that were filled with opium? You're also going to pay us back for that. Oh, in silver, too. Otherwise known as bullion. So I just want to lay out the full story real quick. I just want to lay out the story real quick. British imperialize India. Opium. Ban opium. Because opium, very addictive. They sell opium to China. China gets addicted. China writes to British, go, hey, don't give me opium. Bad. And British go, don't care. Send ships over. China sinks ships. War happens. They get completely screwed. Oh yeah, remember those ships you originally sunk? Pay us. Yeah. Chloe, this is like one of those outrageous fantasy trade proposal. This is Justin Jefferson for Tom Brady. And Tom Brady in 2023. That's what that is. Yeah. Kid, if I started to think the British government was not cool in the 1800s into the 1900s, I just thought the British were like so cool. This really just like messes with my illusion of them. So that's what we're dealing with. Okay. So, political cartoons. Yes. Multiple countries. Very racist depiction. Guns of Fire, the UK trade industry with China is a government-sponsored drug cartel. I mean, when you put it like that, yeah. Again, carving up China, absolutely. Racist depictions all around. Eventually, because the United States gets involved with this too, they're seen as the gatekeepers. Again, this is like very standard stuff. You don't necessarily need this. This is very like gen ed, like kind of just like regular high school. This, I'll explain this really quick. Yeah, Japan is there too. So Japan, again, their relationship with like China as well. Oh boy, that's a time. And that's like a whole different lesson. Okay. Does anybody know the story behind this? Does anyone know about the Taiping Rebellion? Does anyone know? There's a reason why Jesus is there. Don't worry. The hell I walk into Chris O'Toole and the Boston Tea Party. It's true. It's true. Yeah, Boxer Rebellion too. Oh, everything you know? So you know? Okay. So the story behind this, let me explain. Miss Powers at a fiver. American Revolution and War of 1812 happened for a reason. It's true. It's true. This guy here on the left, yeah, Out Missing Class knows it too. So this guy on the left, claims for a hot second to be the brother of Jesus Christ. So it kind of becomes really, really popular to the point where there's the Taiping Rebellion. And, yeah. He was saying he was the brother of Jesus Christ, and he wanted to make China more religious. And then a rebellion happened, and it kind of tore China apart, which made them weaker and even more susceptible to imperialism. That's a time. Listen, man, like, this is history. History is full of, it's full of some things. It's full of some things. The Taiping Rebellion, it lasts for 14 years, and, like, it really messes China up, like, a lot. Like, a lot. Again, they're more susceptible to Western European advances and imperialism. And, yeah, you have, like, millions of people die in this. Like, millions. So, yeah. Yep. More than World War I. Yeah, it's... Yeah. That's history. Like, 20 to 30 million people. Mm-hmm. Like, insane amount. Like, insane. Insane. So, yeah. And then, someone just mentioned that, yeah, the Boxer Rebellion, too. So, the Boxer Rebellion is also going to happen. So, again, I just want to set this up for you. China goes through it. Like, they go real through it. God's fire, who's Ewan McGregor dressed as Obi-Wan? It is Ewan McGregor. The Boxer Rebellion, and again, I want you to kind of just go through the timeline. The Opium Wars, which is what I just explained. And then you have the Taiping Rebellion, which kills millions of people. Imperialism is happening. And now the Boxer Rebellion is happening at the end of the 1800s. So it's like bad. And again, it's basically, again, the short, easy version of it. It's basically China going, it starts with like peasants as well. China goes, why are all these foreigners here? They're like taking over the country and like taking all of our stuff. This is kind of BS. We kind of hate the government because of this. And so there's another rebellion. So that's what I mean of like, it is rough times for China as a whole. And again, the United States is involved. Very racist depiction. If you want to see it even worse, look at Disney propaganda during World War II. Right? Uncle Sam, I occasionally do a bit of boxing myself. Imperialism, propaganda, the whole 9 yards. Right? So, now, that's one place. That is one place. Now, let's talk about Africa. So this one is, it's going to get heavy. I'm going to let you know right now. This is where it's going to get very, very heavy. So we call it the Age of Exploration. I put it Age of Exploration to the PowerPoint because that's what the AP calls it. So this was just for that, also known as like colonization. You know, when basically a lot of Western European countries also went up to the Americas, but they didn't just go there. They went to lots of other places like Asia, Africa, etc. So they'd been there for a while. Slave trade, of course. But places like the Congo, like I mentioned, yes, Himmel, exactly. The Congo is so dense, not a lot of people going, like Western Europeans are able to get into the Congo because it is so dense. Mr. Power Star, colonialism goes nuts in Africa. Oh, yes. Oh, yes. Industrial Revolution comes around. They have the technology to do it now. So, as we mentioned before, a little bit earlier, Heart of Darkness. Yup. That book is rough. What winds up happening is the reason they call it a scramble for Africa is literally all these Western European countries are like racing to Africa. Adam, great lesson from a school administrator. Appreciate you. That's cool. So they're racing to get there. And of course, there is going to be conflict. The Berlin Conference, very, very important. King Leopold II, who is the leader of Belgium, goes, I want the Congo. The Congo is very big. That's a lot of land. And all these Western European countries are like, what? No, you can't just take the Congo. Culture tour, Russian Revolution isn't far out at this point, too. No, it is not. No, wait, talk about a lot there, especially during World War I. So, with the Berlin Conference, King Leopold uses basically like the white man's burden argument. He goes, hey, I want to go and I want to educate the Congolese. I want to bring school. I want to bring culture. I want to bring all of that to them. Power Fire Leopold II, one of the worst people to ever exist. You are not wrong. At all. At all. Himmel, again, it's for AP Euro. This is to talk to 10th graders, so that's what that is. But what winds up happening is Leopold says, like, I want to go educate these people, blah, 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 blah. So, Western European countries are laughing at this dude. And they're like, oh, he's not going there to make money. He's going there to do this, like, this stupid thing, whatever. Sure, give it to him. Leopold is not doing educating in the Congo. At all. At all. Yeah, Colleen, there a majority of people or schools, they offer it their senior year of high school. But yeah, our school did it sophomore years. This is their first one that they actually taught. So that's it. Emil, listen, I get you. But you also got to make it digestible because I got to learn it too. So basically, all of Africa is going to wind up being conquered. We're going to talk about King Leopold in a second. Liberia and Ethiopia are basically the two that like stand against it. I mentioned Ethiopia because the Italians also try and they refute them, and the Italians are super mad, which is why they also go back there during the World Wars. So that's that. Appreciate it, Gable. Thank you. So, King Leopold. I'm going to be very honest with you. He legit, someone said it before, is literally one of the worst human beings ever. He basically convinces all the Western European countries, say, yes, you can have this land. He goes, great, I'm going to educate people, white man's burden. And he takes this entire place over. Now, we're going to hop back there for a hot second. The British, I mentioned in the other slide as well, they rule in Egypt. So the way I love to teach this, especially when I teach Global 2, especially if I taught them during Global 1, this is when I go back to my ancient, like, Egypt, what I taught them. That's a really long time. And that's really late in history. 1956 is not long ago. Hector Fire, Grossi, explain why Zambia has a little nub near the middle of the continent. Explain Can you? Not off the top of my head, I cannot. I apologize. Amateur, very sad day. African people to get a say. Oh, no. Mort, favorite history? Post-World War I societal. Yeah, 70 years ago. Like, you're talking about, like, your grandparents are here, right? Until 1956. Now, again, you want to get, like, deep. What we're talking about right now, and what eventually will happen, especially, like, decolonization, sets up a lot of issues that are still prevalent very much today. So, just, like, that. Just that. Okay. This is why the British took over Egypt. This was the most important thing. If you were to go from London all the way over here, that is going to be 12,300 miles. You have to sail all around Africa. That's not so great when time is money, baby. You got spices, you got all these things. The British take over Egypt and they build the Suez Canal. And now that shaves off 7,200 miles to 12,300 miles. Math shaves off a lot of miles. And so now the British control this. They control the Suez Canal. And so now, thank you, LQ, 5,100 miles. And so now it makes things a lot faster and they control it. So anybody want to go through it? Who are you going to pay? The British. Mr. to Fire History, a favorite subject. Wish you were my teacher in high school. I appreciate you. So yeah, that winds up happening. Okay. Rough part coming. Here we go. Ready? Oh, hey, well, yes, the jewel in the British Empire. India made so much money for the British Empire, like, it is insane. King Leopold. Ready for this? Again, just like what we read before. Epo to Fire, just tuned in, wasn't expecting to follow a history lesson. Guess I got my notepad. Hey. You know what? I'll rouse. What's going on here? That's some white burden stuff. Yep, that is accurate. That definitely is accurate. Yep. So, again, I don't need you to read White Man's Burden. Here's how you understand it. Carry the light for millions of men still plunged in barbarism. It will be the dawn of a better era. Charles Darwin does natural selection. Herbert Spencer, survival of the fittest. Social Darwinism becomes a reason for justification to go and take over and dominate other countries. And now you have King Leopold II, leader of a country, saying, hey, we're better than these people. We're going to carry the light. Let's see. Also, can you make a Kahoot on NFL? Oh, maybe. We're going to carry the light to these people. This is what he tells the other European countries at the Berlin conference. We are going to go and just educate. He does not. Okay. Does anybody know what's going on here? Anybody know what's going on in this picture? Baptism. There we go. Josh, well done. Baptism. Oh, yeah. Baptism. So, someone asked before. Where's religion in all of this? Well, during colonization, religion, especially like you look at the church, looks as an opportunity. More people to convert. Same deal. More people. So you do have missionaries, especially who will go into various places, like especially India, definitely, and more Protestant, but it's like not a ton. But you will have them go into Africa. They'll go into like Eastern Asia. Conversion, right? Okay, this is where it's going to get rough. I'm just going to tell you right now. So, this is, in my opinion, one of also tour. Do I really need to send you money for NFL Kahoot? No, you do not. No, you know, off season. This is one of like the most not really covered genocides in history that I've found when I've been in classrooms. As I said, Leopold is not going in there to educate. He goes in there and he wants to strip the Congo of its resources. Rubber, ivory. Sends people in there. There are quotas. If you don't bring back enough rubber, for example, you get your hands chopped off. Yeah. So now, if your hands are chopped off, you cannot work, you cannot feed your family, likely gonna die. This happens to millions and millions of people. Yeah, Congo Free State is what it was called. Does not go there to educate. I show that picture first for a reason, and then I show this picture. So I showed you the first picture, and now I'm showing you this picture. Said that he was going there to educate. Bring the light to a barbaric people. So, starvation, mutilation, stripping of resources, over 10 million people dead. 10 million people dead. This is just in the Congo. This is Belgium. Belgium. We like Belgium. Belgium chocolates, right? Belgian beers. Oh, good beer. All that stuff's true, 100%, right? This is also part of their history. All right. Again, imperialism, it's domination. Kids are usually where it starts. So, this is a YouTube video. I'm not gonna clear out just because like it will definitely get copyrighted. You can look it up. There are, just to kind of explain before we get into India, there are, and again, how can they do this? Guns. That's the easy answer. There are human zoos in Belgium in which they bring back people from the Congo. I'm just gonna go here. They bring back people from the Congo and they put them in human zoos so that people can go and see what Africans are. They throw things at them. That goes on for a good long while. Like a good long while. I don't know if there's more than one. I think there's like one museum that was supposed to be dedicated to King Leopold, if I'm not mistaken, that like shows what happened here. But human zoos were a thing. As far whatever happens, we have got the Maxim gun and they have not. Yep. Yeah. At the end, if you wait around, I'll put the. Oh, let me see if I can do this now. Let's see. I just now. Boom. Don't start for. There we go. No, go away. All right, yeah. So here's the link if you want. Cannons, 1,000,000%. Cannons. So yeah, that was just a part of it. And so there are people like that have happened within the past like 30 years or so that definitely try to like dilute like what the Congolese massacre was. Belgium, I would say, is like one of those places that they have done like a good job, and like I understand the want, but like to try and like distance themselves from that. And Norm, thank you for the tour. Appreciate you. But like this is the kind of stuff like it's important. And like as someone who taught history and like studied it and all this great stuff, you know, like this is why like with the United States when it comes to slavery, like yeah, that stuff needs to get acknowledged. Like it has to. Because like bro, like that's the whole thing. You got to learn from this. Power fire. Hitler, Stalin, Mao, Pol Pot. Forget Leopold II. Yep. Alex Tour. Hitler, Leopold gets overlooked. Yeah, same thing with Stalin too. Same thing with Stalin. Oops. Oh no. No! Why wasn't this full screen? Okay. Sorry. All right. So, oh, you never heard of Leopold II before tonight? Well, there you go. That's where you go. And again, it's all justified, baby. It's all nationalism, social Darwinism, all 9 yards. Whole 9 yards. So, yeah. Okay, so now let's talk about India. So I think, Henley, you said this before, right? So, like, India was known as, like, thank you for the dollar, as the crown jewel, or the jewel in the crown of the British Empire. India made the British Empire so much money. Like, insane amounts of money. Insane. I feel like this was full screen before. Hold on, I feel like this is bothering me now. All right, so... Full screen. What are you doing? No! Why you do this? This password to fire India provided trillions. Yes, absolutely. So pretty much, you should make a second arrow of history. I appreciate you. Yeah. I mean, again, I used to do it. Oh my god. Oh my god, I'm panicking. How can we help you? You can't. You can't. I'm dead, and we are broken. Hold on 1 second. God, I don't want to spoil anything. I am pressing escape! It didn't work. Norwood, tour history sure does rhyme, doesn't it? Yes, it does. Yes, it does. I got it. I got it. All right, slideshow. There we go. Got it. Nailed it. Crushed it. Tom Grossi. Okay. Got it. Got it. So, again, this is stuff that you would already have learned if I taught you AP Euro. So the British East India Trade Company, that's been there literally at this point for like hundreds of years. It's its own thing that's kind of rocking. Government's like, yeah, rock and roll. What winds up happening is the Sepoy Rebellion, which is this like, it's a rough time. It's a rough time. You have rebellion that goes on in India, and there are a couple of reasons why it starts. If we talk about imperialism, be like domination, a lot of it is cultural. And basically what happens is you have a bunch of people who, in India, who rise up, rebel, kill a bunch of people, and the British go, oh, no, that's not happening. The British government steps in, and they put down the rebellion in India. So we'll talk about that a little bit more in depth. Tim Fire, also African revolutions, the British were highly manipulated by the French, where still sadly some do today. Yeah, manipulation was literally like right there. Mr. Powers Fire, how much for a personal World War II combo? But seriously, I mean, I will teach World War II. I'll happily teach it. I have a great lesson about that. Severe with A tour, would have loved you to teach Tom an A push right now. Survive that A push. Survive it. Okay. So I always like to put this quote in there because I think it also fits really, really well. The British were kind of described as, because again, they were indirect rule, we talked about before, right? Oh, massive religious differences. They called the British the knife of sugar. So that quote, the knife of sugar, there's no oppression, it's all smooth and sweet, but it is a knife nevertheless. So it's going, oh, it's nice. It's like candy, right? It's nice. Like, it's not, oh man, like the British aren't overbearing, what have you, what have you. But there is that underlying threat that's there of like, if you do something problematic, it's still a knife. Gronto to fire. How significant of a role does Machiavelli's work play into this? Seems like loads of beliefs have stood the test of time. You know what's really funny? Machiavelli, like, there's still people who argue if like it was just satire. I would say it has a more of an impact. Like, we're talking about like hundreds of years later. So I wouldn't say it's like the most predominant thing. Could it have like somewhat of like a societal influence? Sure, especially amongst like the elite. But yeah, I wouldn't say like a ton. It's all about what can you justify it with. For a time, it's philosophy, especially during the Enlightenment and stuff. Then when it kind of like switches to science, they use things like social Darwinism to explain it. Ball to fire. The British in India hit personal for me because the British Army sent my family to Fiji for the sugarcane fields and also destroyed my family history. Yeah, I mean, like, this is stuff, and boy, I appreciate you sharing. I apologize. This is like stuff that has real world impacts, like to right now, like today. Like, it impacts like families and things like that. Like, changes it completely. That it's not like, oh man, that was such a long time ago. It was not that long ago. Altitude, have you had to debunk the clean robot myth? No, I have not. I have not. Gods with a fiver. Let's see in depth one day. My favorite war, I'm not joking, the Great Emu War. There you go. There you go. All right. So the British become insane, and I mean insanely. Someone mentioned it before, trillions of dollars. Insane amounts of money, right? That's the British. So, dictating Sepoy Rebellion, there are strict punishments. The British government really gets involved here because they're like, whoa, people are dying. This is a huge problem. Game with a hundo! Saying thank you for this. Would love to see more history streams on history lessons on future streams. It seems like something that people enjoy. I enjoy doing it. Can't happen all the time, but yeah, I enjoy it. I enjoy it. I appreciate you. Thank you, thank you. Okay, so does anyone know what's going on here? Does anybody know what is going on here? Britain tamed the cat. Sure. Yep. The Bengals. Can I move myself? I apologize. I apologize. Crawl tour, go Lions. Looking forward to the NFC North time. Appreciate you. Appreciate you. Ruling of India. Yep, right? So it says India on the stripes of the tiger. If you look at the bottom, right? Well, upon my word, I'm really extremely obliged to you, but how about keeping the brute? Right? India is kind of seen, very much demonization, control on a chain, but it's very much seen, especially after the revolution, of like, no, keep it with Britain, and that's it. Like, that's a British territory, that's all. Horribleness, real quick, super duper quick. Mr. to Fire made fun fact, India is the English name for the country. It's named Bharat by those native. True story. This was what would happen to people who rebelled. If I like learning about cultural history, if so, which favorite culture to learn about? I love cultural history, but I don't know if you and I are talking about the same one. If you're talking about, like, cultural ideas within a time period, I really, really like that. If you're talking about, like, specific cultures based off the region, I also do. Like, I really like ancient Chinese philosophies. That's really, really fun to talk about and how that culture winds up feeding into those. That's a really fun one about. And then societal is really great. So yeah, basically what they would do is they would tie people to cannons and then set them off. So, you know, that. So, Talking about this is the British in India. You can see. Purple, that's 1767, so not too much. Modern Fire, gotta say political cartoons are the lost art form. You ain't wrong. You ain't wrong. By 1805, there's a little bit of darker pink here. And then by 1858, they basically control all of India. So, yeah. And again, I show you this picture. Just let that sit for a hot minute. So again, see that? So, we're near the end, my friends. Don't you worry. We're near the end. So, I go on the whole thing about Otto von Bismarck. It's a much deeper lesson than this, but this is why problems are going to start to occur. So, I just explained to you everything about like science, how it gets morphed into social Darwinism, how it spreads to like the elite / ruling powers, and of course like culture is going to be based off of that, distracts from home, rise of nationalism, etc. Christopher, the IPA comes into fruition. During this time of imperialism, other stuff is happening in Western Europe. It's not just solely this. Derek with 20 for the house fun, Tom. All your content's enjoyable. This is the reason why I love Q&As the most. Truly enjoy spending my Fridays with you in this community. Glad you are the way you are. I appreciate you, Derek. That's so kind of you. Thank you, thank you, thank you. So Bismarck, OVB, Iron Chancellor, he kind of keeps Europe at a relative peace. Relative. Are there problems? Of course there are. But it's mostly chill. He does this by creating alliances. So, if you were like in high school, like in the US, and maybe you learned about Maine, the reasons why for like World War I, militarism, alliances, imperialism, nationalism. I talk about nationalism a lot in like the previous part, and then after this, and then imperialism is obviously this. This is where alliances come in. Okay, I'm with you. Someone hits you, I'm going to hit them back. Bismarck gets dismissed by this guy called Kaiser William or Wilhelm II, right? Yes, Mr. Powers. Yes, plays in the background. Right? Oh my God, he hated Franz Himmel. Gets taken over by this guy. Wilhelm is kind of like a war hawk. He legit is like, hey, no, we're the best. We are the best. And because we're the best, if that means we have to like fight somebody, yeah, we can do that. Let's do that. Because we want to give Germany, again, nationalism is an all-time high. Germany's the best. Which is also why, like, post-World War I, it hits them really hard. It deserves its place in the sun. Okay. So they have the Triple Alliance. Russia. Russia's been left out for a while. Russia has been wanting to get to sit at the big kids table for so many years. They're never able to, though. But when Germany does this, Russia goes, okay, France and Britain, let's team up. So now we have major powers who are fighting for the same resources, same land, building up their arsenal. We're the best. And now they have other countries to have their back as well. Desert Fire, a great conflict will come 4 years after my passing. It'll probably be started by those damn fools in the Balkans. OVB after being dismissed. Yep. Now, on top of that, the Ottoman Empire, which we haven't even really talked about, they are starting to decline, which means opportunity. Land, people, power, etc. And all of a sudden in the Balkans, all the way over in the Balkans, nationalism's starting to spread a little bit. Ooh. Ooh. Why should we be taken over by anybody? Nationalism's starting to start a little problem over here. So, as we finish this thing up, as I like to finish things up, talk about art. So I just explained to you all the it's usually referred to like the powder keg, right? All that great. It was a great mustache. I love when you can trace culture, art, literature, etc. to what's going on in the world and like how that's influencing that. So in 1870, while imperialism is going on, while all these horrific things are going on, Impressionism is also happening. Art, which you might be like, Tom, why does anyone care about this now? That's history, baby. Like that whole, all of its history. So Impressionism begins. And so now it gets a little bit more, I would say nuanced is a kind word. Impressionism is not popular for a really long time. Monet, it takes a while. But basically, it's a lot about nature, and it's basically how, like, moments can fleet. So that's why, like, if you say, oh, from far away, a Monet looks really good, but then you go up close and it doesn't look so good, right? So, that's all fun and fine. That's your Monets, that's everything. In 1880, and this is my favorite art period, because this continues. Post-Impressionism art begins. And that's when art becomes a little bit more subjective. Because remember what I told you, a lot of art was based off religion, nature, happy things, blah, 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 blah. Right? Power Stories, next lesson in the Yugoslav Wars. It wouldn't be for this, because again, just from what I've created, it's just for AP Euro, just for that. But basically, it becomes subjective, and this is like kind of the start of quote-unquote modern art. Because now it's going to be based off of things that are not necessarily real, and they're going to start getting exaggerated a little bit. So here you have a nice Monet. Very nice. Nature. A bridge, right? This stuff exists. Now, is it being painted with a different technique? Absolutely. But it's stuff that exists, right? Now, we're starting to have this. Does this exist? Is it super crazy? No. But for the time period, yes. But this is what I mean. We're not crazy to Dadaism yet. We're not what the art that I showed you, right? We're not into full-blown surrealism. But we're getting there. And that's why I really love talking about like the way that art transforms throughout history, because it's a huge shift. This is when you start to see the wiggle of, hey, art doesn't have to just be nature or Mona Lisas or religious things or blah, 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 blah. It's a slight shift to that lasts for decades. Slight shift. And then eventually would become what I showed you before of like Dadaism. And then it starts getting further and further from reality and more subjective, right? Yeah, it's a huge shift within society, right? Self-portrait. It's not Van Gogh, obviously, but this is the Scream. But that's why I like to look at things like art, literature, etc., because now you're able to see, why is this stuff happening? Well, society is starting to change a little bit, and now it's becoming a little bit more subjective. So, to finish this off here, and you're going to have fun with this one, and then Jesus Christ, we've almost got 4 hours. But we're rocking. We're rocking. Live close to where the screen was paint. That's amazing. Let's check in with science again. Because for you, students would have got this at the end of the last unit, but I started you at the beginning here. So now we're tying it all the way back to science. We talked about how science kind of is becoming the new foundation, right? Throughout the 19th century, and especially as you start getting later into the 1800s, like a lot later, science starts progressing insanely fast. Like insanely fast, right? Because the idea was that, oh, like the apple falls when I drop it because of gravity. That makes a lot of sense. Cool. Every time, again, folks, every time I drop this pen, it's going to hit my desk. Every time, right? There's never going to be a time that I drop this pen and it doesn't hit this desk, right? So it's very interesting how eternal pain can bring out beauty. That's why I love culture. So I can drop this every time. Isaac Newton, he's the guy. That's where we learned it from, right? That makes sense. Now, of course, this doesn't happen. But what if I let go of this pen and it stayed there? Just George, the upon work, what I miss? A history lesson, my friend. Then science broke, right? The people that are mentioned there, Planck, Curie, Einstein, they kind of break science. Does anyone know how they broke science? Oh yeah, Black Toad. Hope it was good. That was good. How did it break science? Freud, we talked about. We talked about in the last one. They proved stuff. Quantum, right? Relativity. Quantum physics. Oh, no, no, no. This goes much deeper. Now we're talking about quantum physics? Wait, what? Oh, also, science can be relative. Wait, what? This completely shakes up society. They are not happy with these people for a long time. But eventually, and if you saw Oppenheimer, right? So Einstein was in that. But the thing I'm talking about is think about it from foundation-wise. If it was religion for a while, then it's science. Then World War I happens, and that science is also starting to crumble at the same time. Sounds like jazz music, Dadaism, Surrealism, nothing's real, art is something you piss in. Evo Jar, sorry, Teach, I'm late. What did I miss? Chaos. So, radium. This is where we end with a fun note. And by fun, I mean people are becoming radioactive. Radium, right? It's when it gets discovered, starts getting created and promoted in products. It's good for you, right? Here's your refrigerator. That's also kind of radioactive a little bit. Here you go. Most amazing sight you ever saw, destroyed before your eyes as you look through the radium scope. What do? Well, here you go, Billy. Let's put some radium right up to your eyeball. Can't be anything wrong with that. This is happening while everything else is. Everything else. Here we go. Hey. Samuel Tour, Radiation Kids Toys. We'll get there. Hey. This is for the ladies in the crowd. You want to look good? You want to look creme? Hey, it's in makeup too. Have some radium. You'll glow. Oh, radium? Let's put it in your toothpaste. Brush your teeth with radium. Uh-huh. Uh-huh. Brush your teeth with radium. Why not? Also in kids' toys as well. Also in kids' toys.